comes alive. Who you gonna call when you get on the line? Who you gonna call? Who you gonna call? Who you gonna call? Yeah! GLOBEBUSTERS! 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 If there ain't no curve, there ain't no ball. The globe religion about to fall. We're gonna open your eyes so you can see who you gonna call if you wanna be free. GLOBEBUSTERS! 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 Who you gonna call? Who you gonna call? Who you gonna call? Yeah! GLOBEBUSTERS! GLOBEBUSTERS! GLOBEBUSTERS!
And welcome everybody to GLOBEBUSTERS. We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of GLOBEBUSTERS Tech. I am your host, Zach, Good Times for All, and today we're going to be saying 15 degrees, and we're going to see the light. Now, what do I mean by when I say see the light? Well, today we have a very special guest joining the panel, someone who was there with Bob, Cammie, and myself up on Pikes Peak when we did the fiber optic gyro test. And then this gentleman also took it about 10,000 feet lower out into the plains of Colorado and did another test. And he's got all the data and all that kind of stuff, and we're going to skim through it and go through it. And that gentleman is Chris Van Matre, good friend, an old friend, one of the first people I actually started talking to on the internet. Believe it or not, Chris and I, and you all know the photograph taken off the coast of California by BMLSB69. You may not know that name, BMLSB69, but a lot of people call it the Black Swan. That's his photograph. And Chris and I started doing our first stuff on the sun back in, I think it was 2016. We were taking pictures of the sun with solar filters and doing all kinds of neat stuff and comparing notes. And yes, I've known Chris for quite a while. He's
BMLSB.
No.
Oh.
Chris is Chris Van Matre. That's his YouTube channel. BMLSB69 is Bo, and he is one of Chris and I's friend. The three of us were they were the first two gentlemen I spoke to really about anything on the internet. As far as, working together and that kind of stuff. So yeah, Chris is a really old friend. You've seen some of his videos, I guarantee it. He's done all kinds of the second sun video, taken right out in the front yard here. That was Chris, who was over at the house showing us the second sun. That'll have to be another show that Chris is gonna come back and do when he has some time. But yeah, so let's get into it. We're gonna say hello to the panel before we get started. Starting off, I'd like to say hello to Miss Karen B. Karen, how are you doing this week, ma'am?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. Happy to have Chris with us. That's cool.
Yeah, he was saying
Looking forward to it.
He hasn't spoken to you since the Flattoberfest that he was here.
Oh, that's been a while. It's a couple years now. Wow.
Yeah.
Man, time goes by so fast.
It just flies, doesn't it? I
Yeah.
know it. And I love the hat. Very cool.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Mr. Kyle Adams. Kyle, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing well. Been really busy over here. Just did a big flat earth debate over on Modern Day Debates, and it was funny.
Oh, man.
Oh, my goodness. It was funny. I had too much fun. I got a little excited just kind of decapitating him over there. But I don't know. Maybe I got a little too excited. I don't know. But yeah. And Simon Dan just featured me on his channel, and out of all, like, I don't recommend a lot of Simon Dan, like hardly ever, but that one you gotta see. It's just super, super funny. Just like I get into, I've been doing this whole discussion about how night is caused on the flat Earth, and about how there's three major causes for night on the flat Earth, and one is atmospheric opacity, which is kind of really a minor thing, just the atmosphere's ability to block your view. And Simon Dan just gets up in front of everyone. There's no such thing as atmospheric opacity. The atmosphere has no ability to block your view. And so it's like,
Wow.
you really just said that? Seriously? And so I'm like, man, I'm never going to let him live this down. So,
Yeah, I've
yeah.
noticed that a lot of the bigger troll channels, their numbers have been dwindling as of late.
Yeah.
I don't
It's
know.
just, yeah. And so it's really funny. You just say the most basic things, but because you're a flat earther, like there's no way you could possibly be right about it. You know what I mean? That's kind of the way they treat you. And so, like, yeah, my big statement here lately is like, if I were to say something as basic as dogs are mammals, they're gonna freak out and say, no, dogs are reptiles. Dogs are
Yeah.
reptiles. Like, that's just because you're a flat earther, they'll just say whatever comes to their mind. And
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Anything to
It's really
oppose
that
you.
crazy.
It really
Yeah.
is. Yeah, we'll have to get into that. We're going to have to do a GlobeBusters Tech Rockfin only show, where we can speak a little more freely about certain things. But that might have to be one. A social tech show, just about the social changes going on in society. Maybe, I don't know, and we'll throw some technical terms in there or something. But yeah, we're gonna have to do a Rockfin show, I think, because there's so much I'd like to say that I bite my tongue here on YouTube.
I get you. Yeah. YouTube's kind of crazy sometimes.
All right. So next up we have Mrs. Cammie Nodell. Cammie, how are you doing this week? You are muted.
I am doing still technically deficient, but I'm pretty darn good. I feel like I'm getting stronger and better. It's been obviously a very, very hard year for me. And this is a very special, sentimental show for me tonight for a lot of reasons. Before I get into that really quick, I have a quick question for you, Kyle Adams. When you discussed possible daylight and nighttime, did you throw polarized light into the mix for me?
I did not, unfortunately. Yeah. That's something
I'm never going to put another possibility.
Yeah. I haven't, like, when the whole Midnight Zone video was one I made like a long time ago, but I've been kind of building up the conversation and kind of keeping it going, and kind of keeping it on people's minds, because these are some really basic principles of atmospheric refraction, atmospheric opacity, and the divergence of light. And those are like the three principles that kind of come together to cause things to appear darker, yeah, that's what causes the night, at least as far as I can understand. But exactly how the polarized that causes it to get darker, I haven't really fully explored that yet. But when I do and can more fully articulate it, then I'll very happily put it into the video.
That's fabulous. So that's an area I'd love to go with you, because I love your opinions more on it, and I'd love you to try it academically and do things, because it's something that, again, I don't have answers, but the possibility, I have experimented at great lengths with it, using polarized filters, and taken in mind that we do know the sun creates polarized light, and if the firmament, or they're again crossing the North Pole, and that if you come into different angles, or again using that heliospheric current sheet, we have a lot of possible actions of pulling it into it. So if you remember us switching the papers and how it got darker and lighter, that also, as far as distance, easily, again, that can come into play in so many areas. But that's just a side note. That where we're going tonight, where I distract myself a lot with tech thoughts. Where we're going tonight is, thank you, Bob. Missing my husband, love hearing his voice in the intro. Chris, by the way, welcome Patricia to the chat. Patricia Steer is in our chat, and that's another reason for me to feel warm, fuzzy, and sentimental. Chris, as Zach said, one of the first people he knew. He is also one of the first people Bob and I hooked up with in person. He was in the Denver area, and almost everything that Bob and I did in Denver, I don't know if people know how big of a part Chris was in our lives and how often he was over at the house and how much we used his technical expertise, and how much Bob truly respected him and everything he did and how much we miss him. So it's really, really special having you on tonight. I think we met in 2015 even, if I remember correctly, or it was very early 2016. Not only are you like stable, smart, just one of the nicest, good people I know, you're just a true friend and have smart, done so much to help everything along the way with letters. So he's one of our quiet kudos in the background. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Chris. And I'm looking forward to the show.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for the introduction. That was really sweet. I miss you and Bob. Yeah, I think it was early 2015 when right before we were going to do the balloon launch. That's when we met. I offered to help with the balloon launch, and then you guys come over. We met at Applebee's, I think, and took it from there. It took us, I think, almost a year before we sent the first balloon up, and then it disappeared somehow. It just vanished in thin air.
Well, yeah, it's a big place out there.
But we had a lot of good times. The balloon launches, the eclipse. Bo, as you were talking about, Bo BLMS, he 69. He joined us on the eclipse, and again, just a special get together on people.
So, Chris, why don't you tell people just a little bit of your background about what you do for a living, kind of how long you've been doing it? You are one of the few people in Flat Earth that we have that are not just in this profession, but you have decades of experience and are proficient at your job. Everybody you've worked for will be like, yeah, you can trust Chris when he says that that's north, that's north.
Yeah. Well, I started, I was a road and bridge inspector for 12 and a half years for the state of Missouri. And that's where I learned how to survey, worked on bridges. And then the last 4 years, I worked as an asphalt inspector, and then was on one of their committees on how to better improve the asphalt and how they tested it. And I'll kind of go off before we get started here. I'll bring it back around to the fog test. But talking about asphalt, when they sent me over to the asphalt plants the first time, what we did was we'd do a gradation test on asphalt. Basically break down rock all the way down to dust in like 7 or 8 sifts. And I remember the first time what we'd do is we'd take a test and we'd break it down into 4 parts. And then we'd take one of those parts and we'd run a gradation on it. Now, if it didn't pass, they had to meet a certain percentage. If it didn't pass, we'd shut down the plant. Well, that would put around 75 guys out of work for 2 days. So one day they didn't pass. We had to shut down the plant, and the plant operator come over and he was like, I'm going to run one of the other parts of the test. And I said, go ahead. I had 3 other ones where we had split it down. Now I was used 1 out of the 4. So he went and ran it, and he come back and he was like, he said, my gradation works that we're still in gradation. And I was like, I got to thinking, and then he called his boss, and it started a whole shitstorm about these tests. Well, my boss come over and he was like, don't ever give them the other part of the test. Well, I went home that night and I'm thinking to myself, we're doing a test and we can't even rely on the results that we get. Why are we even doing it? And we're putting 75 people out of work for 2 or 3 days till they get it back into gradation. So I spent the next 3 weeks going through trying to figure out how that we could make a reliable test. Because I was like, this is unacceptable. I mean, then the next time that I shut the plant down, then the whole argument's going to come up again. So I spent 3 weeks and finally figured out how to go through the whole entire process to where I told the guy that ran it the last time that didn't get the same results. We spent 3 days, and every time he went and ran the other part of the test, he was within 2 or 3/10%, which made it a reliable test. And I remember the third day that he ran it, my supervisor come over and he was sitting there and he come running and he's like, "Oh, I got the same thing you did." And my boss looked at me and he said, "I thought I told you not to give him any part of the test." And I looked at him, I said, "That's bullshit." I said, "If we can't come up with a reliable test and have results, then there is no reason to even do these." So we got to talking and he found out, he was like, "So how did you get this where you can take any part of the test and everything matches?" So I went through the whole process. Well, I ended up teaching all the guys that were in the plant how to do the process, how to go through it. Then they ended up adopting this into the nationwide asphalt super pay program. So the whole reason why I'm doing this is I'll go to the fog now. When I come out, Bob got the fog and he got it from Rick Zeberman. And I went over to visit Bob and Cammie. And I asked Bob, I said, "Can I take the fog and start, because I've got plenty of time, and start doing tests with it?" So I took it home, and at the time I was in FE Core. Well, I'd run tests in the house, and then I'd run them outside. Well, we started going through the results, and we found out that even if we run the fog at the exact same spot, whenever we had a temperature differential, we got different results. So I'm like, we can't do any test until we find out what our optimum temperature is. Then we can take it up and start doing the different altitude tests. So I think it took us almost 2 months before we figured out the optimal temperature to run it at.
I think that's what I really like about this whole community is we really love people like you who take initiative. We find a problem. There's like, that's a problem that shouldn't be ignored, but it's just repeatedly being ignored. And people are saying, just look the other way. I saw that all the time in the military is, "Oh, just look the other way. You're just one of the little people. Don't worry about it because, we can't let all the little people be thinking about all this kind of stuff." You know what I mean? And so just look the other way and let someone else deal with it. That's how this machine works as a whole. But yeah, it's really important to embrace these kind of go-getters out there, that the people who are desirous to take initiative to get things done. That's really, really important in the world today. And so, yeah, it's nice to hear that with you.
Okay, and I'd like to, if possible, take a second and set some records straight, just because of the amount of videos, the amount of questions, and the amount of even like news stories, actually. And I mean news stories. And again, if you were to Google my husband's name, you'll come up with this. But you'll see headlines that say flat earthers spent $20,000 to prove the earth spins. Okay, let's just address things here. This is a flat earth community. My husband came up with by listening to Mark Sargent and by listening to different people about the planes, curious about, again, what readings that you can get with the either ring laser gyro or fiber optic gyro. Keep in mind, these both do measure light and that. And again, they're used in airplanes. What happened was somebody in the community, a man named Rick Zimmerman, who was wonderful, not a wealthy person. I think he scrapped together a lot and bought it. If I remember right, I think he spent maybe around like 14 or 15,000 on it. Mm-hmm. We did not in other words, Bob did not purchase this. This was purchased by somebody else that did experiments and also did send it to us so we could run experiments on it. So first lie out there, flat earthers spend $20,000 to prove the spin of the earth. No, it wasn't. I mean, that's not true. What it was a community of go-getters and everybody working together to run tests and look for information and do it as confident as possible. Again, we're trying to learn. We're trying to see what's going on, but the way they cut and snip things. And so part of this, we get constant emails, constant notes, and constant people wanting to see the results, saying that we proved this. We do have all the results available, and Chris is here to do it. I don't answer the questions as much because honestly, in this particular area, my husband was so confident. Chris was so confident. All of these people in this area with the Michelson Morley and the Sagnat and that were so spot on. I made myself useful getting coffee, being the go-getter, the same on the survey thing. I was not looking at the equipment or doing this. I felt that other people with our group were better qualified for it. And I don't feel that I can answer these questions, not because I'm hiding anything, but because I was mostly filling the coffee and that and letting my husband and Chris take care of it. But he is here tonight and we can answer everything. And part of that is getting rid of the lies out there. And the truth of the matter is that Chris is a hero, my husband's a hero, and Rick Zimmerman is a hero for doing this. This was not anybody doing anything stupid or something that you would want to make fun of. This is people caring and trying to find the truth.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to point out is that we went to great lengths to make sure before we started any of these tests that we had it pinned down and that the results that we got, that hopefully we could, anybody that wants to go out and try and replicate these results could get the same thing. But when we found out that at different temperatures we were getting different results, it was, again, it's unacceptable. So it took a while before we were able to pin down the exact temperature that we had to have it at. And then I come up with stand to put the fiber optics gyro on. I used 2 dry ice packs, and then I put it on a aluminum like clipboard and adjusted the distance between it to come up with the optimal temperature. But like I said, we took I think it was almost 2 months going through data before we actually pinned it down. And then after we got it pinned down, then we went out and done the test at Pikes Peak. Then I took it out to, I think it was close to Cheyenne Wells in Colorado. And then we did another one at Guanella Pass. And then I think I went out to Deer Trail to do the exact latitude for that one. So we done 4 tests, 2 and both of them matched the exact same latitude at different altitudes. The one on Pikes Peak was a 10,000 foot difference. And we got over 1.3, 1.4 degree difference in the rotation.
Which couldn't happen on a
which
sphere.
couldn't happen on a ball.
Yeah.
On their sphere. It should be exactly the same.
Which is exactly right.
Now it would change due to your latitude a little bit, but that's why we took them from the exact same latitude, just different elevations.
And I do know, again, I don't know a lot about the experiment that they were doing as much as I do know that with a lot of experiments I do, and I do a lot of experiments, and I do a lot of experiments with magnetism, and I do a lot of experiments with fluorescence and other things, but we're talking about magnetism, electromagnetism and stuff. I do know that in all of the stuff I do, temperature is a huge coefficient. Temperature matters. So it does not surprise me that the temperature affected on, again, the rate of spin with light. In fact, to me, that's another, not only with, again, it wouldn't work on a globe Earth the way it does it, but temperature with a flat Earth and that too. The fact that your equipment was sensitive to it, it's not picking up the spin of the Earth. It's picking up the spin of the light, and the light is going to be more affected. Then again, your Earth rate would not be affected by the temperature on equipment. I don't know how to.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, did you have anything else for your introduction there, Chris? Sorry.
No, I guess we can get into it.
All righty. Well, we have a short, it's a 9-minute, 15-second video all about this. And it'll have... Sorry.
Dogs are acting to nice kids in the house. Our dogs must search and destroy.
Sorry about that. So yeah, I'm going to get this video going here. This one, the title, it's by Ether Cosmology. Thank you, Bob. And it's all about these tests that we ran.
From what I said in Behind the Curve, because of the way the producer twisted that around, you took that and interpreted it as the Earth was spinning, right? The problem is, I was not saying 15 degrees per hour of Earth rotation. I didn't do the initial test, but I got credited with that, so I'm just going to wear it. We took that gyroscope, and like I said, when we first plugged it in, we got a 15 degree per hour rotation. And actually, it wasn't specifically 15 degrees per hour. It would be an interpolated value taking the sine of the latitude times 15 degrees per hour, which would kind of equate out to that. When I was in the movie, yeah, at that time, when I stated that, I was just as surprised as anybody else. And yeah, I was very reluctant to accept it because I was trying to interpret exactly what we were seeing. I came to find out later on, and by the way, I did tell the movie producer this, what we were seeing had actually been measured and discovered over 100 years before in what was called the Michelson-Gale experiment, the rotation of the luminiferous ether. At that point, we had the challenge of, well, how do we prove that it is not Earth rotation and was in fact the luminiferous ether? Now, some people don't believe necessarily that the luminiferous ether exists, but there's also a lot of Nobel laureate physicists that say that it does. There's a big debate on it. Let's just put it that way. We actually devised a way to tell us whether or not it was in fact Earth rotating. And it was really pretty simple. Fiber optic gyro works on something that's called the Sagnac effect. And the Sagnac effect goes under the assumption that if light is traveling through a medium, they speak of light as a wave. You have to ask yourself, what is a wave? What is it waving? What is it traveling through to cause that wave? What is the medium that light is actually waving? Scientists have been saying for centuries that it is in fact this luminiferous ether. And that is what I actually wound up claiming that it was that was actually rotating, the luminiferous ether. Now here's how and why I came to that conclusion. So we went back and we looked at these experiments from over 100 years ago and the assertions about the Sagnac effect and laser interferometry. And it turns out that what they say about the luminiferous ether is that it behaves very much like a magnetic toroidal field. The ether very much behaves in the same way. It actually is moving. It's not a stationary thing. It is moving, and believe it or not, it propagates vortexually. And it just so happens that that vortex rate is about 15 degrees per hour. How is it that we were able to figure that out and that it was not Earth rotation? The answer is really quite simple. This is, by the way, exactly what we did. We took the fiber optic gyro and we went to a place in Colorado called Pikes Peak. And Pikes Peak is at 14,125 feet above sea level. And we did our measurements there, and we got essentially our equivalent to the 15 degrees per hour rotation rate from Pikes Peak. And then we went directly east in Colorado on the exact same line of latitude down to just over 4,000 feet. And then we did another measure. If I am measuring spin or a rotational rate, it should not matter whether I take that rotation rate at the bottom of a device or at the top of a device, especially a spinning ball. It would be the same whether you took it right on the globe or an inch above the globe. It would not vary at all because it doesn't matter where you would be, high or low, on that same latitude line. It is going to rotate at precisely the same speed. Here's the problem with that. What we found was that when we did the measurement with the fiber optic gyro at the 4,000 foot elevation, we had about a 1.3, 1.4 degree per hour variance from that done at the 14,125 foot elevation on Pikes Peak. So we thought, well, that's pretty interesting because that actually equates to be 26, 27 degrees per day. That's a huge number. So we did it again at a different place, Guanella Pass, and again, and again, and again. And we did it in several different places in Colorado. Each time we then went to its corresponding latitude line at a lower altitude, and every single time we got a greater than 1 degree variance on the two measurements. Well, why would that be? Well, if you think back to what I just said about how the luminiferous ether was always said to propagate, and this comes from the people that coined the term, Newton, Maxwell, all these people that talked about this originally, all you have to do basically is visualize it as a vortex, i.e. like a tornado. If you are looking at a tornado and you look at it on a z-axis, at the top of the tornado, it's rotating fairly slowly, and as you go down that z-axis down towards the ground, it rotates faster and faster and faster, so you have a considerably faster rotation rate at the ground that you do from high up in the air. That, again, is exactly what we are saying that the luminiferous behavior is propagating as, a vortex. The problem here for the globe is when you get a 1.3, 1.4 degree per hour, which equates to 27, 28 degrees per day, something like that, difference in rotation, then that pretty much tells you unequivocally that what we are picking up is not Earth rotation. And it is more commensurate with that vortexual behavior that science has always told us that the luminiferous ether actually behaves in this vortex. We did this multiple times, and every single time, we weren't expecting such a huge variance. When you're talking 1.3, 1.4 degrees per hour, that's actually huge for 10,000 feet. We can only imagine that that number grows even greater if we were able to go higher and lower. But the most important thing is what it proved unequivocally is that what we were picking up was not Earth rotation. That's it. Whether or not anybody wants to accept that it was in fact the luminiferous ether, as I claim and as other people claim, that's up to you. But the primary goal here is to prove that what it did pick up was not Earth rotation. And in fact, when they did this over 100 years ago in the Michelson-Gale experiment, they had to do another experiment called Airy's failure to try and determine what exactly it was that was spinning. Was it the Earth or was it the sky? They devised a very simple optical experiment called Airy's failure, in which they measured the rotation rate optically with the telescope, and then they filled it full of water, and theoretically that would slow down the propagation of light through the telescope. And then the idea was if they had to tilt the telescope further forward, then the light would not be coming in at the correct angle. However, if they didn't have to tilt the telescope forward, then the light was already coming in at the correct angle of 15 degrees per hour, indicating that it is in fact the stars that are rotating and not the Earth. Guess what? Airy's failure. Same conclusion. It concluded that it was in fact the stars. So now not only do we have the FE Core's version of testing whether or not it was Earth rotation, but we also have Airy's failure from back in antiquity. And to this day, you still have people saying, well, we built these gigantic laser interferometers that are stationary and sitting in one place, and of course they are going to be picking up a rotation just like we did. But the problem is there's no way to falsify that if you cannot move that detector up and down on a z-axis to see if whatever it is that you're measuring is changing velocities at different altitudes or different z-axis. So that is how we know unequivocally that what we were not measuring was Earth rotation. And of course, because the producers of Behind the Curve did not want that information to come out, they skewed it and made it look like, wow, dummy flat earthers, they proved it with their own equipment and then sit there and keep denying it. Well, they didn't include the rest of the story, and that's kind of the problem that we have with Behind the Curve. I have told this countless times. It doesn't get any press. The producer even said it himself. They were all for giving Behind the Curve a fair representation until they went to the 2017 Flat Earth International Conference in Raleigh, North Carolina. Then at some point, either primary or junior high school kid got up, expressed his beliefs in Flat Earth, and Mr. Clark, that did the documentary production, said that he and Caroline decided at that point in time that this was too serious and they had to stop it. And they decided at that point in time that they then had to change around the theme of the movie to make it more of an anti-flat earth propagation piece. Now, they said this in their own words. Daniel Clark, by the way, is his name. He said it in his own words, and he said the same thing to us. It's like, okay, now this isn't funny anymore. You've got kids taking this in, thinking that it's serious, and so now we're going to turn this around on you, and that's why they didn't include it. That's exactly what they told me, and that's what they are actually in public saying. In other words, this flat earth idea, this paradigm is so powerful that it will change lives. It will change everything about this world, really, that you ever thought you knew about it. And it exposes a lot of things to a lot of people that they simply are not ready to handle yet. And so that is why they decided not to do that. And that's exactly what they told us. You're very welcome.
You are very welcome, he says.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Bob.
Yeah.
Thanks,
I was
Bob.
on mute. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, that voice always brings me back.
I think back
Great,
to an
thanks, Bob.
interview I did with Cami a little while back, and Bob was just kind of over there in the background, and I can kind of feel that. You know, he's still there with us, over there in the background.
And I loved how that video ended. You're welcome.
I like
Perfect.
it. You said Bob was the reason he watched GLOBEBUSTERs mostly. I just want to say I concur. I also watched GLOBEBUSTERs because of Bob.
Same.
Same. He was passionate. He was amazing. And I try every day to respect and carry out his wishes and what was so passionate and how far he took it. What they did in, right now it was funny because I Googled him last week. And I don't typically Google our names or do things like that. But just out of that, I just typed into Google Bob Nadell and it brought up his picture and movie star behind, or they actually listed him as like star of Behind the Curve and
From
in Google, and it like threw me on there. And again, it was a mixed thing. This movie brought a lot of people into Flat Earth, and we were even still nice to Mr. Clark and Carolyn afterwards. Even when we knew what they did and why they did it, and we certainly don't approve it. People understood how much. Again, how you see how passionate my husband was and how terrific he was and how competent he was. Imagine being hooked for like 3 days with it and giving all kinds of information, one thing after another, and then having them like basically clip where you went to the bathroom and just again, what they did intentionally was, and Patricia in the audience, what they did was they tried to do a spin on it. They made it look somewhat friendly, said they did Patricia and they did Mark, and they did a friendly thing. So there was a joy, and it did bring some flat earth people to it because it showed some of the niceness in the community to it. But what they especially did in the movie was they tried to make the tech look really stupid. And it wasn't. I mean, it's a shame what they did with the number, and it's a shame that people didn't get to really hear what my husband did say. And thank you for cutting that and making it in an easier clip. Again, we're all familiar with it in longer formats, but I think it's really important for
Like all of the
people
great ones
into the
are
movement.
doomed to have a Judas.
Mhm.
All of the great ones are doomed to have some kind of Judas Iscariot moment somewhere in their lives. Someone's going to betray them, stab in the back. You know,
Mhm.
it's just kind of, yeah.
And he handled it with grace. I thought he handled it very well. I was proud of the way my husband did, and I was most proud of the way Karen and the community turned it into gratitude where it belonged. They put it where it belonged, and I'm hoping now that people that have seen the movie and have no other exposure but that of my husband and can look at this and see the brilliance and why they slandered him so bad or why they did what they did to him, because it was very intentional the way they portrayed him to look like that, because it was such the opposite of what and who he was. So let's continue. I think anybody in the chat and that we've had a lot of people that had questions about the data. I don't know where we want to go from here with questions. If anybody in the
thinking-
chat has questions.
You turn on a bright light and it's going to offend a lot of people, especially if they've been in the dark for a while. What's that? What's going on? You know, and it's just going to happen.
Oh yeah. Well, it was definitely a bright light, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, Chris, where would you like to start, sir? I know you had some stuff you wanted to show, some of the data and some pictures and stuff.
I don't have any of the data up, but I can show the pictures and how we set up the test and exactly what I did for each test to make sure that each and every test that we done was exactly the same.
Cool.
And the data that we collected was collected in the best possible, most accurate way that we could do it. So, yeah, I was going to ask you, do you have screen share?
Yeah, down at the bottom it should say screen share down there in the middle. Between
It's got present.
yeah, present. That's the one.
Okay. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and then I know the data's out there somewhere. Maybe if you could send me a PDF or something, or we could make a link, I could put it in the description. So if people really wanted to go dig through it, they had a place where they could go do it. I know it's out there somewhere, but I'm not sure.
All the data that we collected. Yeah, I'll have to compile that together. I've got my laptop, or the laptop right here that has all that information still on it.
Awesome. All right.
Am I sharing? No.
I'm not seeing it pop up yet. It'll usually pop up on my screen, and then I'll click on it, and then it'll give you control. But I am not seeing it pop up. Here, I can stop this one. I don't know if that changes anything. But yeah, once you hit present, you'll bring up the share screen button, and then I usually do entire screen. And then at the bottom, it'll say share, and you have to click that share button down there. Nope, still not seeing anything.
Yeah, I'm going through. Okay, it says choose what to share, my window. Oh, entire screen. And it won't let me click on it. So, now it's asking me StreamYard, system preferences, preview. I'll try preview because I think that's where I got all my pictures. Now it's bringing up Chrome has lost permission to capture your screen to fix it. Go to system preferences.
Yeah, I have a Jaren. I don't have to worry about any of this. He set it all up to where I just hit the button and it takes off.
Yeah. That's been a while since I've been on. Let me see if I can get it here.
Yeah, patience with us, please, folks. Got some old timers and trying to run things here. I don't know how Karen does it. How you stay on top of all this stuff and all your stuff just goes so smooth.
It goes smooth.
The phone calls and everything, the video sharing, everything. You use OBS though, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're one of those people.
I had to because it just works.
It does, it works.
Smooth.
You were actually in the chat trying to help me the one time I tried running OBS, and I ended up just ending the stream after like 10 minutes and being like, forget OBS.
The key is to get it all set up beforehand. And once you get your scene set up, then it works, good for you.
Yeah, I should have probably done that before the show. Try this again.
Yeah.
Bringing up the same thing, system preferences.
That's weird. Yeah, StreamYard, that's the reason I use StreamYard is because it's the simplest one where I can stream to multiple platforms without having to use OBS.
Yeah, but
Can
it
you?
has its other drawbacks too.
Yeah, it does for sure. And then there's an OBS StreamYard.
Yeah, I use OBS. Well, Streamlabs.
Streamlabs, yeah.
Streamlabs OBS, and then there's regular OBS. You can use, but they both work basically the same. I've used them both. Right now I use Streamlabs just because it's easy for multi-streaming and stuff. But you have to pay for it to use it.
And if anybody has any questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. I have one here. This is from Space Audits. He said on the 11th of August, when you did the runs T1 through T11 at the end of T5, yeah, you'd have to have this stuff in front of you. Well, he said, did you move the machine at all?
That the one on the 27th was the one that we did at the campground, and that basically was just kind of a test that we did to get ready to do the actual 4 real tests that we did. Because after I left the campground that day, I went up to Guanella Pass and did the very first one of the experiment that we did. So that data wouldn't have any matching latitude to it. Basically, it was just setting up the laptop, making sure the fiber optics gyro was working good. And I think Jaron, I was having trouble with the laptop that I bought, and Jaron went through it and got everything working real good. And then we reloaded the software. So that test there isn't any matching other tests to it. It was just basically a test for the computer, make sure the software that we had loaded on the laptop was working correctly.
And
yeah,
then
that's I got an email from, I think it's the same guy that emailed me and asked me that same thing. And I gave him my phone number and was going to have him call me so that I could discuss exactly what I just said over the phone and tell him what it was. Because the other 4 tests that we done was Guanella Pass and Deer Trail, Colorado, and then we did Pikes Peak, and then the matching one for that was clear out at Cheyenne Wells, Colorado.
And then he said during these runs, the y-axis was aligned with north, and then the x-axis going east-west. Is that how it was set up?
We just lost Chris. He's not in here.
Oh, no.
He dropped. I don't know if he was trying to do a screen share or what.
There he is.
Question.
It happens.
Wrong button. So what was the question again?
Was it the y-axis of the machine that was aligned with north, south, and then the x-axis that was set up running east and west?
Yes. Every time that I set up the test, I made sure that it was aligned up to north every time, made sure that it was perfectly level.
Yeah, I remember that little plate that you had with the little wheels or the little legs on it that you could adjust the heights.
Right. I had a plexiglass deal that I put screws on so I could adjust and level it out perfect, whatever surface it was sitting on. And then, like I said, I had, that's why I'm trying to share the picture, but I can't get screen share up. But maybe I can send you the photos and then you can screen share them. And then I got one of those thick clipboards, aluminum clipboards. That was about 2 inches thick. That was hollow. That I actually set the fiber optic gyro on so that I could set the dry ice on to control the temperature for each test that I did. And the one that we did at Pikes Peak, we didn't have to use that because we're up at Pikes Peak and it was cool enough.
Yeah.
It was the perfect temperature. But the other ones I had to use the dry ice on because I think that that was in July and August when I done the test, and it was 90, 89, 90 degrees, 100 degrees. So I actually had to use the dry ice on there to get it to the correct temperature and then start recording what I was doing.
Sounds like you're being super, super conscientious just of the temperature at the different elevations. Like a lot of people just overlook that stuff, but you're going all out for attention to detail. Wow. That's respect.
Thank you. But like I said, yeah, that's when I worked for the state, that's what I learned. You got to pay attention to the details. And if you don't, then you're just gathering a bunch of, it's kind of like shit in, shit out. So there's no need to do any test or anything like that unless you pay attention to great details and you know exactly how to do it. And then when you hand it to somebody, they can replicate the exact same thing. Or otherwise, like, it's just, you're basically wasting your time.
Yeah, otherwise you're going to be doing the same thing. Oh, what you're trying to do is you're trying to eliminate the back and forth. You're trying to get as much done in a single sitting as possible. And so, yeah, otherwise you're going to be doing the same experiment like 30, 40, 50, 100 times just because you didn't quite take this into consideration. Oh, I forgot to take this into consideration. And so just get as much done in a single sitting as you possibly can.
Yeah,
temperature and direction are known variables. We know that when we base something in other direction, in different directions, we know we get different speeds of light. Just like when you grade diamonds, you have to do it with northern light. You get different shades of lighting in that. You also get, having it set in direction and temperature. These are regular coefficients that when you test things like this, they're known. So to not account for them, again, you have to have somebody competent like Chris to look at the different things. Again, if not, it's worthless.
Mm-hmm. Did you want to send those pictures try sending them on Skype, Chris?
Yeah. I'm going to take a screenshot of them and then send them to you on Skype.
Okay. Yeah, I'll never forget going up on Pikes Peak. That was so cool. There were flowers up there, plants that I have never seen anywhere else. It was the weirdest looking. It looked like some alien plant. It had a really, really thick stalk. It was probably like that round, the stalk on it. Really big stalk. And it had a big ball at the top, not many leaves on it, and no like petals or anything, but it had this weird looking, it looked like a bud of a flower almost. I have a picture of it. As soon as I can get all the pictures off my old hard drive, I'll bring it. But yeah, there's some really weird plants that don't grow. They only grow way up high, apparently.
We were past the tree line. Karen, any idea what I was doing up on top of Pikes Peak? And
in Colorado, right?
In Colorado. And how much extra weight was in the car when we came home? Yes, there were rocks up there, beautiful rocks. Even in the parking lot, I think I sat on the parking lot. Thank you for seeing me do it. I did a copter squat on, like catching over the edge of the parking lot onto the rocks and just said, guys, who needs coffee, who needs drinks, who needs this? I'm looking at all of these rocks and collecting. But how are we doing on our presentation? I'm sure a lot of people in the audience are aware that I'm kind of fond of looking at rocks wherever I go. And they are everywhere.
Yeah, I remember that. Me and you were doing a lot of hunting rock, looking at the rocks, hunting.
Mm-hmm. I can remember sitting off to the side on the thing, and it was chilly up there.
So what's the tree line? About 11,500?
I think it's about
11,000?
Yeah, it's right around 11,000, 12,000 feet timberline.
Right around 12,000, because we had a cabin up at over 11,000, and there were trees up there, so it was definitely a little bit higher than that. Trying to think of where.
Well, Pikes was what, 14, 125.
Yeah, 14,115 feet.
I remember when we were at the parking lot, or we were somewhere where we were kind of like walking along near the road. I think Chris and I had stopped. Didn't you pull over at one of those little pullover things or something? Because I remember we got out and I took a picture of
Yeah.
that flower that was right there on the side of the road. And we were well above the tree line already because there was no trees below us for a couple 100 feet. Yeah, it's really different when you get up that high. It's hard to explain it, just how far you can see. It's amazing. And seeing the shadows on the ground from the clouds, seeing it from that point of view, you can see the whole shadow of the cloud. You know, usually you're down there and you just see the shadow come and block the sun from you. But here,
It's right. They're up close and personal. It
oh,
really
you're just looking and you see the cloud, and then you look down, there's the shadow right there on the ground, covering a huge swath of land, but you see all of it, you know. The whole lake that it's covering, you see the whole lake. It's neat, that point of view.
And at the Continental Divide, they say, by the way, the tree line in Colorado averages around 11,500 feet. So you're right on there, because I knew that we still had trees right at around 11,000 feet, and it was up there. We know on Guanella Pass, that was like one of your favorite views, Zach, on Guanella, where you had the perfect tree line and could see.
Yeah, I have an awesome
again-
picture of Hank up there. He's like
I'm
looking
playing
at
in
the
this
camera, and I got half his face in the camera. It's awesome.
and the snow in July. Yeah.
Yeah, walking around barefoot in July in the snow. That was pretty cool, in shorts.
And I sent those pictures to you.
Yeah, I got them right now. I'm going to share them here.
And just the
And I
science
can-
of the tree line itself is really fascinating to me. Why all the trees way up there, but you don't get anything like that at the low elevations?
All right. So here is the fiber optic gyro. It's got the cable hooked up to it, going into it. I'm sure you've got a different picture of it too. It kind of just looks like a little pint-sized mason jar,
Yeah,
just made out of steel though.
Yeah, when I first looked at it, I was like, wow, this thing's really small.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it, how teeny tiny it was when I had first seen it. Matthew De Gregorio, thank you very much, sir. Merry Christmas, folks. I hope EBS is very soon. We'll know everything. And then also,
What's
Toby
EBS?
Walker. I'm not sure. EBS. I'm not sure. Toby Walker, thank you so much for sharing the edit of Bob. His courage will never be forgotten and inspires me every day. Yes. Me as well, Toby. Thank you, sir.
Cheers,
Much
you guys. Thanks
appreciated.
for supporting the channel.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And then a big shout out to Eric the Red over on Rockfin.
Emergency broadcast system is EBS.
Emergency broadcast system. That's it. Thank you. So yeah, and as you can see, he's got it lined up with due north here. There's the east-west line right here. Making sure that everything's level. Here's that. It's a piece of fiberglass, plexiglass. And then he has these little screws here on each of the corners, which allows him to, we could raise or lower any of the corners.
To level it.
Yeah,
That's
you
pretty.
could
That's a
level it
pretty
perfect.
cool and a pretty cheap way to make something that where you could level it. You just need some bolts and some nuts and a piece of plexiglass. That's pretty cool.
Wait a minute here.
Thank you. Yeah, it took me a little while. One of those deals at night or one of those things when I'm sitting in bed at night going, how am I going to do this?
Cheap and easy. That's great.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is what it looks like right here. This is the fiber optic gyro. Here it is sitting, and there's that piece of plexiglass there. You can see there it is next to a laptop. Not very big at all. It's they're
Now,
small.
what is the blue things next to it? Are those ice packs, like keeping stuff cool, or is it just weights?
No, those are the dry ice packs that I was talking about to get the temperature correct. That's sitting on an aluminum clipboard so that I could get it at the optimal temperature.
Okay, cool.
I'm thinking about that laptop here in the sand. I'm like, what are you doing putting your laptop in the sand?
Yes. Science can get dirty, Kyle. It's just
And
part of it.
there should be there's another picture in there where I use my the app to get the altitude and the exact latitude, longitude. That's it.
Yeah, here we go. 4,000. Yep, 33 feet.
Yeah, I believe that was the match for the latitude for the Pikes Peak test.
Yeah, 38.84 north. Yeah.
4,000 feet. Yeah. Here you go.
10,000 foot different. There's this level there. There's the north, south, east, west. Look at, I love it. Altoids can here, little paper tab. We've got this over here.
Yeah, had to use a couple other things to level it that day. The screws weren't big enough.
Farmyard scientist. I love it. The backyard scientist.
And then
There's-
I used that bubble level. I used the other level, and then I used the level app on the phone. So I checked it 3 different ways when I was leveling it out.
Spinning.
No, it says I think it was spinning. Oh God, it was. I forget what the saying is, but it's about the Earth doesn't spin.
I love it.
But you can't see it underneath the.
Oh, Bubba, you okay? Dad's right here. He's dreaming. Yeah, I know. Okay.
Hank. Is that Hank?
Yeah. He's just started dreaming. I had to wake him up out of it, or else he'll start getting louder. And that sounded like a happy one, though. It sounded like he was chasing something. So that's a good one. So-
Yeah, this kind of shows everybody exactly everything that I use. And each time I set up each test, I did the exact same thing. Made sure that the fiber optic was pointed north and duplicated it on all 4 tests.
Oh, it won't let me zoom in any more than that.
Yeah, because Skype, you have to download it if you want to zoom in.
I wanted to look at these rocks right here. Yeah, that was but yeah, this is the kind of stuff you have to do. Like Chris was saying earlier, you have to get rid of all the different variables that you can. You have to. Without that, you're just wasting time, really.
Yeah, just waiting for someone else to carry on the work 100 years from now, and yeah.
Well, you're wasting time, and whenever you do things like this too, you have to keep in mind that there's going to be somebody out there who's going to try to debunk it or invalidate your findings. So whenever you're doing stuff like this, you have to think about that. You have to think about it from the other side. You have to make sure that you eliminate all that stuff so that it is as foolproof as you can get it before you present it, because you have to know that there's going to be people on the other side trying to poke holes in it immediately.
Oh yeah, that's what science is, right?
Exactly.
But at the same time, don't wait forever to make things perfect before you present it, because yeah, sometimes you just want to inspire people. And so I keep thinking back to my fish tank laser experiment and about how cloudy the water, and it is really difficult to get the settings just right to get the experiment to be successful. But there's all these different problems that I saw with the experiment, but at the same time I didn't want to wait forever to publish the work. I got the work out, and now that I'm seeing a lot of other people who went out and did the experiment for themselves, and they did a better job. Sky Free, for example, she did that experiment, and the water is so much clearer to see, and she got much better results. But yeah, that's the whole idea, is went out there and inspired other people, and that's the main idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't wait around forever. If someone else decides to go out and do a better job, great. I celebrate that.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for, right? advancement. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't think of anybody on flat Earth that did it best the very first time. Because we've always seen everything duplicated and tried and done over and over and over again.
I
And it's
wasn't even the
usually,
first person to do the fish tank laser experiment. I watched. I think it was
I
Mick
did
West.
fish tank
Mick
laser
West.
stuff.
And
I
Mick
did
West
fish.
was the first person I saw do that, and it was so funny to
he
because
probably watched Karen.
I don't know. Yeah.
Actually, no. I actually I did my fish tank laser stuff in response to him showing that, because he was talking about putting sugar in there, and then we found out there was a thing with when you put sugar in water. It's called dextrorotation, where it actually makes the light refract in a certain way because there is sugar crystals in the water. And as we all know, certain minerals and stuff, they all have this very specific refractive index. So it was like, you know,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
we did it, we were like showing him, like, you can't just put a bunch of crap in the water and be like, this is what the atmosphere does, because it's not the same.
Yeah, and it's not about it being the same. I never made the statement that it is the exact same or anything like that. The whole thing for me was we're just trying to observe what happens when light gets refracted downward. And so
Mhm.
that's the entire objective right there. Just
Yeah.
what happens when the light gets refracted downward and how does that affect your vision? And so I got the whole inspiration thing from a conversation I had about Rob Esquiva's setting sun observation. He's always saying, oh yeah, the atmosphere acts like a lens. And so he puts up a lens and it's like a circular lens, you know what I mean? But
Mhm.
the atmosphere itself isn't quite circular like that. It's not a radial lens. And so we're like, okay, well,
Well,
what
what is it
going to
then?
look like? Well, it's not thicker in the center and it gets
But it
like
is a series of water droplets that are suspended in the air, and the water droplets are shaped like that, are they
yeah.
not? So
Yeah,
then
but
the
it's like
water
individual
droplets,
water.
all of
It's like
them acting cohesively as one lens, does sort of seem to emulate that sort of refraction through water droplets suspended in the air.
yeah, the individual water droplets are kind of shaped like radial, like that. But
Right.
we're talking about like all of the water droplets together. Then it ends up becoming more like the fish tank,
Yeah,
which is
but you're
the
still
lateral.
experiencing it from a local point of view. Don't forget that. It's
Okay.
always local.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm still seeing it being much more similar to the fish tank, which is a lateral refraction rather than a radial.
But how do you view stuff? You view stuff radially, don't you? From
But
your
you view
point of
things
view.
radially through the fish tank as well.
Fair enough. But the atmosphere is scaled out bigger than the fish tank.
Yeah, and again, it's not saying that the atmosphere is perfectly like the fish tank. It's just this is what happens when over the lateral view. We're trying to recreate the lateral view and see how downward refraction affects things. It affects our view of things, and that's it. That's it.
But
As long
also
as that's,
sometimes it goes up.
yeah, it does.
Sometimes the refraction goes up. We experienced that when we were in Balaton, actually.
Mhm.
The
Yeah,
refraction was going up and we weren't even able to see the light, the laser the first night because it was going up.
and that's kind of the funny thing about the atmosphere is it's never the same. It's gust of wind, everything's different. So
Yeah, that's when I quit trying to figure optics out. Once I figured out the optics of a lens and how all that works, that was all fine and dandy. But then you throw the atmosphere into it, and unless you had a sensor every meter for as far as you're trying to view, and I'm talking up, down, and on the z-axis going this way,
you get it.
then you could maybe measure what's actually going on and taking place.
Right.
Other than that, no,
There's no standard atmospheric refraction.
no, that's
Yeah.
nonsense.
Yeah,
That's ridiculous.
and that's kind of the perfection the globe earthers demand. It's just like, sorry, you're just not going to get it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the 15 degrees per hour that you see the trolls in chat, or at least they've quieted down quite a bit as of late. But you'll still get a few. Oh, thanks, Bob. 15 degrees. Thanks, Bob. And this was why. It was all to do with the hit piece on Netflix, Behind the Curve. Still haven't seen it. Never plan on watching it. But yeah,
I'm
they
right with you.
yeah. No, and before the movie was made, Bob had explained all of it to him. You know.
Yeah, I
And
really
and
liked
people
the.
think that when he actually said this at first that he had done the test himself. No, he didn't even have the gyroscope yet. This was just word that was, relayed to him. Rick had done the test and said, "Hey, we are picking up a drift." And it's right around, it comes out to about 15 degrees per hour. And yeah, we were like, okay, well, we're going to have to figure this out.
There's an old episode of Strange World where I think it was Rob Skiba jumps on Strange World and talks with Mark Sargent, and they just cover the entire movie. They watch the movie together, like right there, and just go over scene by scene, and you get the full commentary of it. And it's kind of back there in the archive. I don't remember which one it was, but that's definitely one worth remembering and bookmarking for this kind of conversation.
Of what what movie? The Behind the Curve movie, or
Yeah. Rob Skiba sits down with Mark Sargent, and
it's
like,
probably
they have
on
a whole
Mark's
conversation.
channel.
It is on Mark's channel.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's probably on Mark's channel then.
Yeah, it's back there in the archives, so like way back there, and but it's one worth watching.
Yeah, that was they basically cherry picked everything out of that in that movie to make Flat Earth look ridiculous, and they tried to do that with everybody that was in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a hit piece. Now, there have been a couple of documentaries made within the last year that I thought were really well. The one, I forget the name of it. They're from North Carolina. We went up there to go see it.
Is this
Origins
Level
Untold?
Origins Untold.
I haven't heard of that one yet.
The Fazooks.
Yeah, really well done. The cinematography was amazing. The music was just awesome. It looked very professional. And I loved the point of view that they came at it. They just had a guy going around talking to different flat earthers and asking them questions.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't from a flat earther point of view type of perspective. It was from a outsider's point of view that had an open mind that would just like to talk to some of these people and try to understand what they're saying. And it was really well done, I thought.
I had so much fun doing that over at Flattoberfest, just going over and interviewing as many people as I could, just hear their stories. And yeah, it was phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, Chris, did you have anything else?
Is there any other questions?
I'm not seeing a whole lot in chat pertaining to the fiber optic gyro.
And it was a fiber optic gyro, not a ring laser gyro. That's one of the big confusions that happens in this.
Mm-hmm.
Not a ring laser gyro. Nobody ever had a ring laser gyro. Bob said he would like to have a ring laser gyro, but nobody ever had one. It was always the fiber optic gyro.
So there was no ring laser gyro in Behind the Curve. That's so funny.
I know.
Wow, that's like I'm just learning that now. I was like, what?
I know. And people like argue about it all the time. Like, you guys are talking about something that never even happened. What are you guys talking about? We proved the rotation of the Earth was something we didn't even have. That's fantastic.
That's like that game of telephone. It starts one way and then all of a sudden, what?
Yeah.
I have to do this really quick. Let's see if I can present. Share screen.
Yeah, I was like looking at that cord. I was like, that's the gyro. It doesn't look anything like, because I was thinking of the ring laser gyro, because I'm kind of familiar with how that looks. Like in this presentation, I'm like looking for the gyroscope and like, that doesn't look like anything I've seen before. And so this whole thing on, it's not a ring laser gyro.
Ring lasers are small usually, they're not very big at all. I mean,
So fiber optics
aren't
have
those
like a
the ones?
cord.
Yeah, it's a cord wrapped around in there,
Uh-huh.
sending the light around.
Do I have this sharing?
Yes, you do. Here we go.
Yeah. This I just Googled. I Googled my husband's name, Bob Nadell, about movies behind the curve. A flat earther spends 18,000 euros to prove his theory. No, he didn't. When flat earthers spend $20,000 trying to prove, no, he didn't. I would notice if this came out of our account.
Right.
A group of flat earthers led by Bob Nadell. No, he was maybe he was inspiration. Nobody spent 20,000. Again, every time anybody, this was like one of the things that every time it came up, everybody would just increase to it. It's like it's hysterical. Obituary.
20,000
I know these are just yeah.
on a laser gyroscope. They
On a
called that
laser,
one.
yeah.
Fiber optics and laser gyro. I guess
Uh-huh.
I can kind of see how people are getting them confused, because whenever you think about fiber optics, you're thinking laser light or something like that. You know what I mean? It has to do with light.
This
Yeah.
flat earther proves the earth is in fact round. No, he didn't. Water is wet and the earth is round, which is sad news.
Wow, the Huffington Post.
I know. That's
Huffington
when I said
Post
news
is
stories.
not that great.
No, but I've heard of it. It's, you know.
Uh-huh. And yeah, this
Did you
is
know
this.
Tesla has its own Tesla, Roddy, it's called TeslaRoddy.com. They're trying to really fight back against all the bad publicity they're getting with the Cybertruck and
Oh God.
yeah.
Somebody shared a video on Facebook today that made me laugh. It was called when Teslas hibernate for the winter, and it was like some freeway, and it was all snowy, and there was just random Teslas like stuck on just parked on the side of the road up and down the freeway. There was a whole bunch of it. It was hilarious.
Well, yeah, you got to think about stuff like that, you know.
So
You don't
yeah,
want to get stuck in a traffic jam in a Tesla.
Just on the side of the road, went to sleep for the winter. Oh, it's terrible.
So this, I think, this is really like looking at every other type of news, because I can tell you, living with Bob Nadell for the past 23 years and things like that, and having firsthand knowledge of what he did every day in our bank accounts. Water is wet, earth is round, which is sad news for conspiracy theorist Bob Nadell. Nadell is a proud flat earther who is so confident in the theory that he spent a whopping 20,000 on an experiment. That ironically, it's like,
yeah, not true.
Yeah, not true. It's
not
just
even
a flat
true.
out lie. Nothing is true. So it's just interesting. That's what I mean on the things. It's we'll get out of it, but it's
And it wasn't to test if the Earth was round either.
It was
if it was moving.
It was.
You don't even need a gyroscope to see if it's round, folks.
We
you need a camera.
Chris, I believe that we did the level where we were actually measuring for the shape of the ground, not like what the light was doing or anything else. But it's amazing how they can print it, and just again make shit up. Did any of these news people contact us? No. Did anybody ask what he really thought? Did they? Again, you can just print up a story and call it news and call it fact. Mind blowing. But if
now it's mainstream, and so it must be true.
Mainstream, it must be true.
I was going to say that's what they are. It's their the way that they do their propaganda. They can throw anything out there, and the masses believe whatever they throw out there.
As long as enough people are saying it.
Right. And as long as I don't have we didn't have the money to spend on I really don't have the money to take up to fight it. I mean, I wouldn't even. What do you do with stuff like this? But I can tell you that
you wear it as a badge.
You wear it as a badge. It's pointless, but I can take for a thing that you wonder why I don't take the news so seriously. I can personally witness what they did to, again, and we were people in Denver and in South Carolina, not just people looking at it, and were news stories. And it's like, that's freaking crazy. And not only are we news stories, but we're libelous, slanderous news stories that weren't, I mean, that are provably wrong. They can look, again, if you were to take apart anything, look for purchases or anything like that, I guarantee you we'd never purchased, we never spent $20,000 on a gyro.
And the trolls come and talk to us and, just trust the news. And they still try to, like, it happened to you, and they're like trying to tell you what your experiences were this whole time. It's just like,
Right.
I'm pretty sure I know what happened.
Right.
Yeah, I know what I experienced.
And I don't know what I think got me, or like, I don't know if it got, but it was like a disturbing is a flat earth channels that were like, well, because we don't want to, how do we defend about this? And it's like, well, you tell the truth instead of like trying to defend. It's like, these are lies. I mean, you just tell the truth. There's no defending against it. Just tell the truth on what really happened, and then it clears it all up instead of buying into the lies. If you buy into the lies, again, your problem as a truther in the first place. If you're just buying into the mainstream lies and saying that they printed it, so it must be true, you're not a good truther.
I'm thinking about
Thank you.
the
That's a shout out to Nathan Oakley, by the way.
Okay, so what's the price difference between this $20,000 ring laser gyroscope versus this fiber optic gyroscope? Like,
About
I don't know. I know that
$6,000.
they were pricing out a lot of them, and I'm trying to remember how much Rick did do it. I know it
I
wasn't.
think it was 14.
I don't.
It
I
was
think
like,
like
it
a
was in
14.
the teens. It was like 13,
It was in the
14.
low teens, though.
Yeah.
Right.
okay, it's still kind of up there though.
I mean,
up
it's a
there.
lot of cash.
Yeah.
Let's not get it twisted. It's a lot of cash. Like, that's dedication to fork up that kind of cash just to try to perform your own experiment. Like, I don't see anybody
And he
else
did-
really doing that, spending that
that's
kind of money.
respect right there. Like,
Absolutely.
And
Wow.
Rick Zimmerman,
Of course.
this is not somebody that I think had. I mean, this is somebody that was passionate, like my husband, by the way. I
Mhm.
don't think this is somebody that had millions doing this, that casually set this. Again, these are
Right.
people that are passionate and care, and then they get demonized for caring. And this is, again, part of the plan is you demonize people for being passionate and
Mhm.
caring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a little story. I don't know if you ever heard it. There's a tiger and a donkey, and the donkey looks at the tiger and tells the tiger, he says, "The sky is green." And the tiger is like, "No, it's not green. It's blue." And donkey's like, no, it's green. And they're like, tiger is like, "Well, let's go talk to the lion." So they went to the lion, the smartest one, and the donkey was like, "I told the tiger that the sky is green." And the lion looks at the donkey and says, "Yeah, I guess you're right." So the donkey runs off all happy, and before the donkey runs off, the lion's like, "Well, tiger," he said, "you got 5 days. You're banished from drinking out of the water hole that we have." And the donkey's all happy, takes off running. And the tiger looks at the lion and says, "Why are you punishing me for being wrong? I mean, being right." And he said, "I'm not punishing you for being right. I'm punishing you for arguing with the dumb donkey."
Never
I like
played
that
chess with pigeons.
with pigeons. And what my
I'm
husband,
guilty of that way too often.
See
What
my
my husband-
debate on Jaren's channel a week ago.
oh dear, that was, yeah, don't do that. Like Bob said and agreed with, when we do this, why are we playing by their rules, or why again, we don't, that's retarded. We know
Just
the rules are retarded.
shut up and go back to the assembly line. That's all they want you to do. Just shut up and go back to the assembly line. I don't want you thinking about stuff like that.
I was just watching a movie. It had Pierce Brosnan in it. It's a newer movie. He's been a hitman in so many movies. I wonder if he does that for real. I'm just saying. This was another movie where Pierce Brosnan was like an assassin. He's done quite a few of these now. If you go back and look at all his different movies, he's been a hitman in quite a few of them now. But regardless, and he was telling a story about when his dad would come home, he was a young child, like 6 years old, and he was really into cowboys, the Wild West, and he would hand his dad a gun, one of his cap guns, and they would draw. And his dad would win every single time. And his dad would be like, turn around. And when he would turn around, his dad would shoot him in the back. And he despised his dad for that. And he, and then he was working for a mob boss, and the mob boss told me, he's like, no. Your dad was teaching you a lesson there. He was teaching you that you don't play games by other people's rules, because they're not set up for you to win. They're set up when someone makes their own game and gets to make the rules, they make the rules in their favor.
Yep.
So you don't play by their rules. He's like, you know what you should have done? You should have hid behind the door, and when he came in right away, you don't hand him a gun. You just shoot him in the back. That's what your father was teaching you, not to be trusting people and to be playing by their rules. And then he finally got it. But yeah, what you just said made me think of that. Oh, I don't know the name of that movie now. It wasn't bad.
That's excellent. Yeah. I have an excellent something I just thought about offhand that has nothing to do with anything we're talking about, but I want to share it because I thought it was fascinating and I didn't know it. And this was on, I think, Black Belt Barrister Law. But y'all know when, like with credit cards or anybody, when you go to disconnect your DirecTV or do anything with any of the corporations, and you know how they have that these calls may be monitored for quality control, and you all know the recording, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, this lawyer, because of one of his clients in a case, because of the recording, he did a FOIA request, or requested in, maybe not FOIA, but in Discovery, requested these phone calls because the lawyer himself was not aware of this. When he requested these things, they were like very long. It turns out that you're being recorded not just when you're on the phone with them, but that entire time that you're on hold, that they put you on hold with music, you're being recorded that entire time. All of your background. So for anybody that is not aware of that, and I was like, you're kidding, it's for quality. You'd think that when you're talking to them, they're recording.
There have been multiple people caught by police because there's a lot of times an operator will just be sitting there listening.
Mm-hmm. They're actually recording anytime you have that recording on it. Or he said, basically you can count on this. He knows because when he did the tapes were all the background, all the stuff going around, all around the phone call. And this particular lawyer was somewhat surprised. So he made a video and shared it. So I'm just sharing it with all of you because I would have agreed with the lawyer that you would assume when you agreed to be recorded or you hear that thing that it's on the phone call itself and not the 2 hours they put you on hold where you're on speakerphone and doing other things.
Where you're going, when this motherfucker comes back on the... Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Right.
Yes,
so you know what I'm going to do?
Hit that mute button along with that speakerphone, people.
Yeah, some really big what were they, money launderers or money, not launderers, but people who print money. What are
Counterfeiters.
they? Counterfeiters. They were like the biggest counterfeiters of, like, it was either the 50s or 60s, something like that. And they had called somewhere and they were on hold, and the operator was just sitting there listening while they were on hold. And she heard them talking about doing all the counterfeiting and, oh, this batch of 20s looks great, this and that, yada yada, and she called the cops and sent them there, and yeah, that's how they got busted. But that was like one of the first times that the telephone company operator assisted blah blah police in catching criminals, and it was all because of that. Yeah. Was
that the owner of the Federal Reserve? Just counterfeit money.
Yeah. Hey, a big shout out to Effie Nation. Awesome show. Here's the moon if you missed it today. Yeah, go check out Effie Nation's channel. He
caught the moon. Must be a sliver. Must be just a sliver.
Just a baby. Oh, that was another thing that made me laugh today.
6%.
Chris used to do that, actually.
5%.
Carl. Chris was big on
3%.
What was the record? What is the record for hours after?
I think it's 5 hours after the new moon.
Is the earliest photo that's ever been taken of a new moon.
Yeah. Wow.
Just teeny tiny sliver, and it's got to be in the right spot. You have to just it's you know, it's got to be in that perfect spot.
It's not easy because it's still kind of close to the sun at that point, and it's really
Yeah.
tiny. Like, it's really not easy to find.
Yeah, he used an infrared filter, I think.
Yeah, but I remember you were into that there for a while.
Yeah, I still want to get out and get one even better than that. Try and break the record. That's why I got my 8-inch telescope so I could track it.
Now, Chris, the last time you were out here, I don't think it was a Flattoberfest. I think it was a solar return.
Yes, it was. The
Oh,
solar-
yeah.
And I'm hoping that we can get together on another solar return because I have a lot of wondering that solar return and the timing of that. If on our when we did the second send in our test, I'm wondering that was a very significant time zone that we did it in. Of course, it was solar return.
Yeah. So it's the end of March.
Right, it was the end
beginning
of March. Mm-hmm. So we were at the equinox, and I'm wondering if that had something to do with the results that we got. And so I'd love to, like, when we do coordinate some experiments, maybe coming up in the same time frame this year, we can coordinate and do something. I might even be willing to go out to Texas for a little bit or that for it.
Yeah,
I know
and
you're you're a very, very, very busy person, but you have a solar telescope, my friend.
yeah, and I was gonna say, I think Crow just bought a really, really expensive solar telescope. So
Yes, I know he was working on it.
Yes, curious to see what he's come up with his new one.
I take it he gave up on the night vision, trying to get night vision for a telescope. I know he was looking into that, but it's just ridiculously expensive.
Yeah, and talking about the sun, real interesting observation that shout out to Patricia, my lovely neighbor down the street, Miss Steer. We went for a walk, and they have these neon street lights. And as we're walking, we both look at each other and we're like, you know, the shadow that you get right before the total eclipse, where you get like 4 or 5 shadows of exactly the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
These street lights cast the exact same shadow.
Really?
Yeah.
Like to get some information on the lighting on it then.
And
Very.
and I looked at it, and what it is it has 4 neon, or not neon lights, what's the new lights?
LEDs.
Yeah, the LEDs. They got 4 LEDs, and then they've got 1 LED in the center. And
they have different lenses on each one of it, so it's breaking it up.
Is that
into
5 total?
Categories.
Yeah, it's 5 total. You have 4 on the outside, you have 1 in the center, and they're all grouped real close together. And every one of them that you walk under will cast the same shadow from the trees down onto the ground.
Wow.
So I don't know if you remember, Zach, I recreated the same thing with the flashlight that I've got with shadows on the wall. And basically the way that flashlight works is it's got the dome, like the mirrored dome in the way it casts the light. And the light itself, you can run the light down and then back in. And when you get the light almost to the top, where it almost, when I was thinking about these 4 lights on the outside and the light in the center, it's almost like, think about if the sun was in the dome and you pull the light up, and just before it gets inside or outside of the dome, you've got light ring cast around the outside, which would make almost that same effect to create that shadow.
Okay, I'm here. I get what you're saying.
And when I did that with my flashlight on the wall, you could actually get the same type of shadows on the. I set up a plant, did the same thing, and it also, once you do it, if you do it just right, it'll actually look like the eclipse of the sun, the shadow going across the light in the flashlight.
Gotta love what's going on. Kyle, of course, in the background has got an LED light ring and has already been doing all kinds of hands-on. I love that you're doing it. I know that they're talking about it in closer configuration, but the hands-on and the testing, this is what I like about this group. I also am thinking of some of the different LED things that I have to try it. I know that one of my favorite things to do on an airplane has always been, but you can get a somewhat of a similar effect as that obscura, is if you take your diamond ring and catch the light coming into the window, you can make the little shadow rainbows scatter all over, up and down. I like to see how far I could get little miniature rainbows. And I mean, I could make 1,000 little bitty rainbows miniature from it. Again, your little rainbow shadow going all over the plane. I'd see on a plane, it's just a way to amuse myself, how much of the ceiling I can cover with the plane and make them move and see how many people I can get their attention that I'm making little rainbows go all over. Again, it's just on the ceiling of the plane. And I've on a plane, I mean, I've covered over 50% of the ceiling of the plane and with lighting things, and I've gotten quite a bit of things, but it's something that should do a single shadow, because I'm running it through like a mirror crystal like this. Again, you can get the same type of effect crystalline, or like you're saying with LEDs, and anytime you do it and separate it, the optics, there's so many different ways to get there.
So what you're talking about just recently, thinking about solar eclipses and such, have you seen anyone actually replicate that shadow effect from like the leaves during a solar eclipse? Have you seen anyone ever replicate that before?
Well, I've replicated it somewhat with crystals.
Uh-huh.
You can get the same type of thing, and yeah, you can do it with different things. But I mean, that's not really replicated. You can. I don't know if I'm replicating it or I'm simulating it. Meaning I'm not doing. I'm getting the same result without
doing the
I don't know
same
if
thing.
Yeah,
right.
but, so you can do it with crystals, you're saying, but I've never seen anyone do that like on a globe Earth model. Does that make sense? So like, I'm going to try and pass a ball in front of a light source, and now I'm going to see all of these other shadows, like the funny shadows land somewhere else in the room. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like a really simple observation, but I've never seen anyone replicate those funny shadows on the model before, like on a globe model, like trying to play with the lights, and yeah, it doesn't work on the globe as far as I can tell. I've never seen any globe earther successfully replicate that without, implementing something else, like you're talking about with crystals here. You've got to implement something else in order to replicate it.
Yeah, and I'll have to take a video and send it to you and Zach. But yeah, when we were walking and saw that, it's like it's just incredible. I mean, and like I said, the only other time that I come close to doing that is with the flashlight, and I got to thinking about the four LEDs, and then the light in the center, and that's the only way that I've seen that it's been replicated with lights.
These kind of things like don't cross normal people's minds. They just, oh, look at that, and they don't think anything of it. How does that work on a globe? Globe earthers don't think like that. Well, I can't speak for all of them, because yeah, if no one thought that way, then no one would ever kind of turn and become a flat earther. You know what I mean? And so someone thinks about that, and then it's like, and that's when the lights turn on.
Yeah, Jethro Tull said it best. What you said right there, Kyle. You'll never know what it's like to not think. Your wise men don't know how it feels to be thick as a brick. It's just how it is. You're never gonna get it. I'm sorry. I've been asking my mom this question since I was young. Why are people so dumb?
It's
Really,
you
like
don't realize you're blind until you can see. That's
exactly. Yeah. Just and even when I was young and still believed in all kinds of nonsense, I still saw the stupidity of grown. Even here I am 13 years old. It's like, Mom, why are they just so dumb? And it's true. You're never gonna know what it's like to not try to think logically. Some people just don't. And I'm sorry, but you don't get to experience that, Kyle. You just don't. It's a lesson in itself. But yeah, it's a great song if you've never listened to it. It's like 45 minutes long. It's called Thick as a Brick. And they would play the whole song in concert straight through, 45 minutes straight. Yeah,
I'm
not
thinking of
easy
the
to do.
song from They Might Be Giants, Whistling in the Dark. That's
Whistling
the one
in the
that's going through
Dark.
my mind right now. Whistling, whistling, dark, 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 dark. Yeah.
Well, folks, I think that's going to do it. I'm not seeing any more questions about the gyroscope or anything like that. So I hope that kind of set the record straight about, the whole behind the curve nonsense and all that, and what actually took place after that, and even before that, the movie was produced, because they knew about it. But yeah, and the length, especially like Chris had gone through, to make sure everything was exactly the same, as many things as he could get exactly the same from one location to another, keeping the temperatures the same and all that kind of stuff, making sure it's level, all the measurements he did, and that's what it takes to get real data. So what we've been waiting for is for someone else to go out and reproduce these tests. Anybody, Glober, Flat Earther, whoever, somebody go out there and try to recreate these and see if you get the same results. And so
We've
far we
inspired
haven't.
someone, then it's mission accomplished.
Yeah, and I think part of it is, and I don't think too many people realize the implications of what these tests prove.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons why nobody from their side, National Geographic.
That's why they don't ever recreate it. It's why they won't ever try to redo it. It's why every time we try to make them do any sort of site test, they have to fake it. Like
John
in the National
Cena
Geographic video.
Stephen Hawking out there, good Lord, with the helicopter. That was so bad.
It's why none of these, big scientism priests will ever debate a flat earther, because they cannot prove that we live on a globe. They cannot. And we can prove repeatedly that we don't.
Yeah.
I think the whole Neil Tyson versus just the rapper B.O.B., like that was kind of a fiasco for them in and of itself. Just the way that ended. Yeah.
I have a question from the beginning of the show. I remember it just popped back in my mind, and I think I'm going to go back and answer it to the best I can. Somebody in the chat wrote earlier, if the equator is the midpoint, why do you guys think that there's land past Antarctica? Okay, the equator on the globe would be the midpoint. On the flat Earth, what we say the equator is where the sun is. Again,
midpoint.
the midpoint where the sun travels, which the sun is in the sky, not on the ground. And so therefore the sun that's the midpoint where the sun hits before, and then you have
between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn.
Exactly. So
that's the only midpoint is referring to. It's not referring to like the end of the world or anything like that. Nothing like that. It's just the midpoint between Cancer and Capricorn. Sorry.
It's talking about the sun's movement. It's not, that doesn't necessarily reflect the land. I mean, you'll have if you're doing it into warming and that, you could say how far could you reach out and have it warmer that again, but you have like we've shown before, a lot of the heat does not seem to come from above. It seems to come from below. With your, again, Iceland is warmer than Greenland even, or things like that. We don't know. These are unknowns. I'm not saying that there is land past Antarctica, and I'm not saying that there's not land past Antarctica. I'm saying that there would be midpoint as far as on the ground, and calling the equator the midpoint on the ground is not part of, I don't think it could be part of a flat earth construct. Again, it doesn't seem to make sense to look at the sky, say this is where the sun midpoint's here, and so therefore the land has to exactly, they're two different tracks. Anybody else have anything more to say on that, or is that fairly clear what I'm saying?
Yep.
Okay. I hope that answered
you're muted,
it.
Kyle.
Sorry about that. Yeah, you're good.
Well, all right, folks. Then we're gonna wrap it up. Yeah, 9:45. Ooh, I gotta get to bed. I gotta be up
Early.
for a show.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You got an early show.
Yeah, 5 a.m. That'll be all right. I'll get a nap in tomorrow. I like my naps.
That's right.
Whoever is saying the moon map shows all of the land, that's definitely highly contested as
Okay.
far as, yeah, we'll go on from there.
All right.
I'll post a link to my video in chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. That would be a good idea. Again, I can't seem to find a whole lot of logic in that either. And so again, we know what we know, we don't know what we don't know, and we can make possibilities and probabilities on the rest at this point. But thank you guys, everybody, for joining us. Have a great, great night.
And Chris, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thank you guys for having me.
We're
And
gonna
again,
have to do a second sun, soon. A lot sooner than the last time we've gotten together. That was a long, long stretch there, but yeah, we'll have to get together, and because the second sun one is huge too. But what I've learned through my flat Earth journey is it doesn't matter how amazing a discovery or something that you figure out or anything like that is. You can't make people watch. You can't make people, see it and comprehend it the way that you do. And some things take time. So just when you put something out and you think it's, out of this world amazing, and it doesn't get the traction that you think it should, don't lose hope. Okay.
Don't stress it. Just
no.
yeah.
Some of my videos took years before they got the views that they, should have.
You could be ahead of your time.
Yeah. Yeah. So just, and you might have to make a couple videos on it, things like that. Every, maybe 6 months later, just put out another one, just kind of similar, but not the same kind of thing. But yeah, there's so many things out there. The second sun is one of them that I think it's just ahead of its time. People haven't grasped how big that is. And when you realize it's not a lens flare and something silly like that, and what's really going on, and that you can polarize it out of view, it starts really raising some questions. And yeah, but we're going to
starts becoming very, very scientifically significant what we did.
Yeah.
And again,
Yeah. So we're going to do a show on that here coming up for sure.
I would love to see more observations of that, because, once you make a discovery like that, it just unloads like a whole load of questions. Like, does it move throughout the sky? Is it always like right there next to the sun? And I want to see more about it. You know what I mean? That's kind of the wonderful thing about new discoveries like that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons those lenses are that expensive. They're not cheap. The double stack hydrogen alpha.
Yeah. They're thousands.
Yeah, they're not cheap. I know Chris's setup was a pretty penny.
Yeah.
So,
and again, I'm curious to see what Crow comes up with his.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm curious to work with you more on it, Chris. I like people running the tech part of it and doing it. I liked, again, working with you. I don't really have a desire to own my own and handle the big scope. It's an interesting thing, but I would like to work more tests with you and do different things. And again, I think timing is a lot to do with it. And again, within the timing, you need the right weather and other things to cooperate. But that's something I very much look forward to doing in the future, Chris.
Yeah, and this time of year is kind of tough because the sun goes down early. That's kind of a spring summer thing. And then where I live now, I've got trees, and in my backyard, I've got a complete canopy over the backyard. So I've got to load all that stuff up and go somewhere and sit.
Not like the Colorado skies, huh?
Well, and when I was in Colorado, I could just take it out the front door and set it up.
Yeah.
And there we had clear skies all the time.
Mhm.
It was amazing that how much you don't even realize it till you move away, and then you go out to look at the stars or look at the sky, and it's like, God, it's cloudy. But in Colorado, we were blessed with clear skies probably 85, 90% of the time.
Yeah, I'm not used to having mountains and hills around me blocking my view. You know, I was from Indiana where it was all flat cornfields, like real flat. And you could just see the sky forever. And like you get down to the middle of a cornfield, like a 4-way intersection where it's just cornfield, 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 cornfield. And you could see the horizon all the way 360 degrees around you. It was just awesome. And I haven't had that since.
Place should be really easy to find new flat earthers, but I'm just surrounded by mountains, and trying to tell people the earth is flat when you're surrounded by mountains is kind of a tough one.
Yeah.
Alrighty, folks. Well, that's going to do it. We're going to get out of here. Thank you all for joining us. Again, thanks, Chris. We're going to have to do this again soon.
Yeah, and thank you guys for having me on. And it was great being on the show with you, Karen. Like I said, it's been a long time since we talked.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to see you. And
last time I was out there, you made special dinner for me at your house.
Oh.
And thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say thank you, Karen and Kyle and Cammie.
And it was nice meeting you, Kyle, for the first time.
Yeah, you too. You too.
Yeah, I knew you two would get along. You guys. Kyle, you remind me of a younger Chris. Just the niceness and everything of you two is very similar. Yeah, you guys have that. Just a good heart, you could tell.
I love the ambition here, and that's the thing that I really like. The big takeaway, and it just inspiration to get out there and go do stuff. You know, get away from the assembly line and go and try and make the world a better place.
More than anything on the shout outs and the thank yous, I want to do a special long overdue beyond shout out to Good Times for All, Zachary Zavala, who has had to pick me off the ground so many times from depression and keeps on going. And even when I stop, and I just stop sometimes. I just stop sometimes. It's hard. This is the hardest year of my life. And I've had some pretty hard years before that. But Zach, for pushing through and keeping everything going, I don't think enough can be said as far as thank yous, because not only is he helping us through the group, but he's going through heavy grief himself. So making everything happen and pulling it all together, there aren't enough thank yous for you, Zach, right now.
My pleasure, Cameron Joe. You know that.
Sometimes, but you're amazing, and thank you. We wouldn't be doing it without you, so thank you so much. Bob, I think would be pleased.
Oh, well, thank you. Alrighty, folks, that's gonna do it. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week, probably the regular time, 7. We could have started at 7 today. I misunderstood what Chris said. We got a little mixed up. We could have started earlier, but it turned out all right anyway.
Yes.
Any of you that missed us because we're on a little bit later, I know I didn't see Steph and Xander in the chat. We might have been just a little bit late for them. I know they're over there in the Netherlands and it's pretty late already. So, but yeah, thank you all. And we'll be back next week. Have a great one. See you Sunday, hopefully over at GLOBEBUSTERS.
Thank you all.
Remember,
Peace. Love y'all. Sorry, I didn't mean to go too fast.
You're all right. You're all right. Remember, be good to each other. Don't lie to each other. Open your mind because there's truth inside. Peace out, everyone.
Peace.
Peace.
Double
Much love.
peace.
Truth matters.